Hey everyone, welcome to the Do the Thing podcast. This is your host, Stacey Lauren. So this is really cool because you guys have probably met a few of the people that I've met at this investment mastermind that I recently joined with Ryan Daniel Moran. And I've had a few people on here that I met from there. And I finally get to interview the person that was my roommate at this event. And it's so cool to just meet someone for the first time and not know how it's going to go or what that person's going to be like or if you're going to get along or any of that stuff. And it was just so cool how we got the email saying that we were going to be roommates and feel free to connect before. And we could even meet that day because we were both coming in earlier. And we really had the coolest time together and were able to get to know each other even deeper before the event even started. And then getting an opportunity to be her roommate, it was really perfect because we both have very similar ways of doing things. And it was just the perfect situation at the perfect moment. And then who she is, you guys, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Her story is unbelievable. And especially with the group of people that I've been attracting lately, which are people that are starting over in life and getting to see what's possible and overcoming all the things that have happened in the past and then being able to make a new life for yourself. And that's what I'm really excited. Not only is she an amazing person just from the inside out, but also just the things that she's done and been able to do with her life reset. It's beyond extraordinary. So I'm so excited to welcome Margie to the show. Hey, Margie.
Hey, so I'm glad that we can finally get together. This has been several months in the making. We just finished out my busy season. I had to put you off for a while. So I'm glad we could finally connect.
Yeah, and I think it's perfect because I feel like there's been enough time and space between the time that we were together and now we get to really kind of dive in even deeper to be able to hear everything. I am just so excited. I cannot wait for you to tell the listeners about you and your story, and I'll be able to kind of go from there.
All right. So you want me to just dive in?
Oh yeah, we're doing it. We're going deep. Bare your soul.
Bare my soul. Here we go. We're going to unzip my heart cavity. Here we go. So I guess a good place to start is that you mentioned about starting over. And in 2018, just before my 20th anniversary, my husband decided that he didn't want to be married anymore, that all of those plans that we had made together and our whole future I changed my mind. And I had been a stay-at-home mom for 20 years, living my dream. I'm traditional that way. I loved being a homemaker. I loved raising my kids. And now suddenly I had to craft a new life for myself. It was such a gut punch just to kind of figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And in my former life, before marriage and kids, I worked and my husband and I didn't get married until we were in our 30s. So I had a life before that. And I worked for a medical software company and I traveled the country teaching people how to use our proprietary software. It wasn't just a software that you could take off the shelf. So you had to, when you signed up for the company, you had to learn the software and then we would go out and teach it to those people. And then eventually I worked with in-house training the trainers. So training the employees how to use the software and created a training department and all that. So training has been my whole career in life. So when I had this gut punch of a news that my husband didn't want to be married anymore, I just thought, I'll just step right back in. I just thought, I'm the same person. I'm still just as smart. I thought it would be no big deal. And I put my feelers out there to all of my former coworkers and said, hey, I'm back on the market. And it turns out that a middle-aged woman out of the workforce for 20 years is not very valuable. I still felt like I was the same person, but my resume didn't reflect that. So I didn't know what I was going to do. I tried putting my resume out there, trying to interview for jobs. They just weren't interested. And so I decided that I would pursue becoming a bookkeeper. I had bigger dreams than just being a bookkeeper, but I wanted to start as a bookkeeper. And so I signed up for a program, and into it, who is the makers of QuickBooks Online, which I'm sure everyone has heard of. They offer for bookkeepers and accountants, they offer a certification in their software. And so I said, well, I'm going to get this certification under my belt, and it'll help me in my career and goals and whatever. And Intuit provides free training on their software. You can go in, you can log in. Accountants and bookkeepers can even get a free copy of QuickBooks Online, and it's all free. So you could go in there and you can take the test. But the training was just so bad. It was so awful. The whole time I was going through the training, I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I could do such a better job than this. But I had to focus on my own life. I couldn't chase that squirrel. I had to put my blinders on and just stay focused on my own thing. And so I did that. I got my certifications, and then I went out into the world to try and become a bookkeeper. And I joined groups of other bookkeepers to have people that were in my same sphere to talk to and all of that. And everybody was complaining about that dang test. They were complaining about the test and the training, how it was so awful. And it got so bad, finally, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Finally, I just said, I know that I could do this better. And so I just whipped together a little training course. I just put it out there I probably was free at the time, was certainly super cheap, just like, hey, if you want help passing this test, here's some help, some training. And to my shock and surprise, people ate it up. It was like, you see a couple of ants and then you turn over the log and there are all of these ants. People were struggling so much to take this test. They just ate up this training and they begged for more. And so I have since built this big company. We have other certification programs coming. We have other training that's now available in QuickBooks Online. And I just stumbled on this little tiny niche of people who just are so hungry for what I have to offer. And it turns out that I am still smart, and I am still a good trainer. And all of those things that I knew inside of me from 20 years before that hadn't changed, they actually hadn't changed. And now I have something that the world can see. And I have actually had one of the companies that I interview come back begging for me say, oh, hey, actually, we do want to hire you. And I said, no. So, yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah, there's so much that I love about this because it's so easy to get caught up in all the steps that you would need to do something. And for you, you just thought back to your past experience and you're like, okay, what is something that I've done well at? And that was teaching software in the medical industry. And then realizing when you were getting into Intuit and QuickBooks that might be something you could do, but you're like, you know what? I don't have time for that right now. I'm just going to focus on paying your bills, probably, right? And
yeah, exactly.
The first step, which was becoming a bookkeeper. And then once you heard other people having that same problem, you were like, okay, I have to do something about this.
Yep. Yep. And I think that's a key thing for me, is that I just saw so much pain and I had to solve it. I just had to do something about it because I just can't stand to see people in pain, especially when there's something I can do. And guess what? It's lucrative to do that. So.
Yeah. And there's something really special about what you said about joining the group with the bookkeepers, even before you decided to do this. And I think we both value that, right? There's that one piece of the do the thing formula, which is my people. And it's surrounding yourself with people that are doing the same thing as you, that want the same thing as you. That's how we met, right? We both joined Ryan Moran's group because we wanted to be around people that wanted the same things. And I think people can underestimate that idea of just even simply joining a group like that, because that's where then things can flow from. That's where you got to see that there was other people that had this problem. I just thought maybe we can just talk about that for a minute too.
Yeah. Some of my best friends in life have come from groups that I have joined of people that were on the same path. I mean, I think that's a beautiful thing about the modern age, is that it's so much easier now than it ever has been in history to find your people, right? Back in the day, you lived in a little village or a small town, and those were the only people you knew. And so if you had big dreams and nobody in that small town had also big dreams, then you were stuck. So that's one of the things that modern technology has given us, is this ability to connect with other people. I mean, you and I live far across the country from each other, and how else would we ever have met if we weren't in this group? And here we are with this modern technology, actually talking to each other and getting to know each other. I mean, it's just such a miracle in my eyes.
Yeah, and I wasn't going to go here, so let me know if you're comfortable doing this, but I feel like this is screaming at me that I have to go here right now. We have our shared introvertedness. Is that okay to talk about that for a minute? Okay. And I think that's one of the reasons why we did so well as roommates, because we were comfortable parallel playing.
Yeah.
We were able to, we realized we had to put a lot out, and then we were able to be in the room and still talk, but then have our own time to do our own thing.
Yeah.
And there's something about the introvert, and I get a lot of introverts, I think, maybe because I am one. That's who I'm attracting with the people. And one of their first things is, I can't join a group like that because I'm not comfortable being around people. And I actually just interviewed, I don't know if you know of John Lee Dumas, but he's a really popular podcaster. I interviewed him, but then I interviewed his wife, who is in charge of this community that I'm involved with. It's called Podcasters Paradise. And she is the opposite of what I would expect from an introvert.
Oh, really?
She's able, I mean, kind of like you, right? People can't tell who an introvert is because it's just where you get the energy from. Anyway, she talked about going to an event once. When she got there, the first thing she did was go to the bathroom because she just couldn't be around the people yet. She needed some time and space for that. And I'm kind of similar with that. I mean, I think we were comfortable immediately because we had each other. And then there's a time for me where I realized if something's really structured, and there's maybe icebreakers or some kind of an agenda involved, it's easy for me to integrate. And I just thought we could kind of talk about that for people that want to join a group like this, but then and I don't even mean any group, whatever group you want to join for whatever the thing is you want to do. What's kind of something that you've done, or how are you able to do that?
I think that the number one thing that popped into my head when you were talking about that is just having the self-awareness that that's what you need, that's who you are. Because just having that, they say awareness is half the battle. So if you realize that you need that and that it's important to you, then you will make the time to do that. That whole event, it's kind of a joke with all of us who were there, because Ryan, and he felt so bad, but we just all laughed it off, that the place that we were staying was not the caliber that that he thought he was booking, and it was just kind of weird that we're all super successful people and we're sharing bunk beds in a room. But I was really nervous because I knew that I needed that alone time, and I was really nervous to share a room with somebody else because I thought, oh, girls, chat. And so it was, like you said, it was just such a blessing to end up with you, who has that same need, to withdraw and just do your own thing. And I actually really appreciate you, because I feel like you gave me permission from the very beginning, from our very first conversation. You said, oh, well, I need to work. And I was like, oh, thank heavens, I need to work too. But I felt bad saying that to somebody because, I don't know, you get to a certain level in life and I feel like everyone expects a piece of you. And I just don't have that much to go around. So,
yeah, I think I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that's important for whoever it is that's listening to tap into what do you need. And I think that's something I've gotten a lot better at, because actually I just did a result. I'm doing a quiz for people on what stops you from doing the thing. And I just did the people pleaser persona result, which is, oh my God, that was me to the T. And so, and one of the big things for the people pleaser is learning to ask for what you need. And so I love that you mentioned that, because that's something I've been really flexing that muscle to make sure that I'm asking for it. And then you received it so well. And for people listening, it's not like you need to go somewhere and stay in a place with someone. That's next level. I'm just saying there's always a starting point. And so what Margie's saying is this whole company that she has now, this freaking badass, amazing business, is now born from her going to a bookkeeper group with other bookkeepers, because that's where it all sort of started from. And so that's the big thing, is I want to make sure they realize is how powerful something like that. And actually, just to add more to it, I had Leah on here she was also from the mastermind, and she talked about her business, and it started from her going to a toy invention networking event. And so again, my people. And so it doesn't matter what it is, but it's finding something of what you want to do and going there.
Yeah. And I will also say, I did not intend for this at all, but since it's kind of come up, I will also say that instrumental in my success was my membership to an organization called BNI. So BNI, if you haven't heard of it, is Business Networking International, and it's all around the world. And it is businesses that are business owners helping business owners. And the idea of it is that you are supposed to refer business to each other. So you have kind of like a club that you join, and you can only have one of a particular profession in that seat. So there could only be one bookkeeper. There could only be one insurance salesman. There could only be one auto mechanic. And you kind of make this agreement with one another that you will send business to each other. And in the time that I was in BNI, I think my last presentation, I think that I had 5x'd my business just from my association with those people. And it wasn't because they sent me business, but it was because it was a structured way. And again, here, this comes back to being an introvert, and having a structure is so helpful. It was a structured way for me to get to know other people and what they do. And so I had an accountant that I could turn to. I had a web guy that I could turn to. I had a marketing guy that I could turn to. And I needed all of that stuff in the beginning. I would absolutely not be where I am today without those people. And I only knew them because I put myself out there to join the group. So, and actively participate in it. That's one of the things about BNI, is that you can't just join. You have to apply and interview, and they have to, number one, have a seat. They have to make sure that personality-wise, you're a good fit for them, because they're all relying on each other to send each other business. So yeah, that was really instrumental.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because there might be some people listening that are wanting to do the thing, but maybe they're stuck in their isolated box. Maybe they are an introvert, and they're thinking of, I don't want to go to this networking event, because if there's no structure to it, it is really painful and energy sucking for an introvert.
Super painful. Yeah.
But if you go to something and there's some structure to it, then it feels a lot more comforting, because there's a flow to it. And I think the more you do the structured stuff, the more you can do the other stuff, because it's like you're going to flex the muscle to do it. So yeah, I'm glad this came up. I wasn't planning on going here, but it feels alive, since that's kind of the first step for you to getting this company building this company was to be in that group.
Yep. And even, and now I'm just so grateful that I joined Ryan's group, because I have made so many connections that have been super helpful, extraordinarily helpful in my current business. So it's been amazing.
Yeah, you just don't know what one group or event or anything is going to do for your business, for your life, for your family. It's just unlimited to what can happen when you get to tap into a network of people that want something similar as you.
Yep, exactly.
Well, I'd love to go back to Margie, who just got divorced and decided to do this bookkeeper thing. And then all of a sudden you're hearing the people say, okay, yeah, that actually sucked, that whole test. And I want something myself. And then you created a video. What was that like? Because a lot of times that could be painful. It's like, oh, is it right? And from the very beginning. So I'm thinking, because you have some background, because you had it from the medical company. So you kind of knew, you've trained people. So I'm thinking that part might have been easy for you. But when you put something out for the first time, how did you come up with a strategy to be able to record your first training and get over that hump of, here's the need, I hear people wanting this, I wanted this, and then now I'm making it?
Right. Well, I think a part of that, and I don't think this is the answer you wanted to hear, but a part of that is just my natural ability. I feel like that it is my gift to the world. It is the reason that I'm here, is that I have a talent for taking complicated information and turning it into something that is simple and easy to understand. That's just always been my gift. And that's what made me successful in the medical software company. And I feel like it's what makes me successful now. So as far as knowing how to present it, how to teach it, that was the whole thing. Was I went through the other training and I was like, ugh, I could do such a better job than this, because I knew internally that was my gift and I could do that, which says a lot, I think, about having internal confidence and knowing your own gifts and knowing your own skills and being comfortable with them. Now, that said, technology was a hurdle. When I got married and I left the corporate world, Windows had just come out. So we went from a DOS-based thing to now we have Windows, and I was using WordPerfect, and then they switched to Microsoft Word, which was a brand new thing on the market. So I'm old, right? So technology was definitely a hurdle, and figuring out how to record the videos, present the videos, and then host the videos was another thing. And the internet is amazing. You can learn anything you need to know on YouTube. So that's amazing. And then it also comes back to my connections in BNI. I said to the tech guy, hey, can you help me? I need a website that I can store this material on. And he recommended something. And I'm technical enough that once he pointed me in the right direction, I could pretty much create it on my own. But yeah, that was definitely a hurdle. And it continues to be a hurdle, because as our courses have evolved, before we just had a video and a PDF, and now we have interactive exercises and quizzes, and now we're going to start having some animation in the videos, and so all sorts of fun stuff that just adds on itself.
I was wondering too, as you were saying that internal confidence and you really knowing what your superpower is with that turning complicated things into simple ones. How did you know that? Were those questions you asked yourself? Did you go through a process to figure it out? Or was it just a knowing from the experience you had from the job before?
So that's an interesting question. I come from a family of teachers. All the women on my one side, on my mom's side of the family, were teachers for generations. And my grandfather was a high school principal. And my mother broke the mold and became a nurse, which greatly disappointed her own mother, right? Because we're all teachers. We're a family of teachers. And so the legend is that when I was first born, my grandmother held me in her arms and said, she's going to be a teacher. And I resisted that my whole life. It was that thing hanging over me. And I just like, no, I have other dreams. I'm going to do other things. And when I was in college, I ended up being a tutor because I was taking classes and I seemed to do well in the classes. And then there were other people in the class who were struggling. And so the professor said, hey, well, why don't you talk to Margie and she can help you. And so I ended up tutoring. And it was kind of through that I realized, much to my chagrin, that I actually was a good teacher, that I really did just have this gift. And it was then that I was like, oh, I mean, I never wanted a classroom. I never wanted to teach kids. But then I thought, is there a thing where you can teach adults? Is that a thing? And sure enough, it is. It's in a corporate training as a whole industry. And now we have software. Software training is a huge industry. So
I love that you expanded that idea of what a teacher is too, right? Because most people would just think either, oh, shut it down, I don't want to be a teacher, right? But you're thinking of how is it possible that I can still do this without having to be in this classroom? I love that open mind. I think you have a really good ability for keeping an open mind and then also being comfortable asking for help. I was just curious, where do you think that comes from? Because a lot of people aren't willing to, they're either closed-minded or they're not comfortable asking for help, or both?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that is something that I've always been able to do. I was the teacher's pet. I was the one that other kids were afraid to ask the teacher, and they would ask me to ask the teacher. You know? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. That's just always a thing. Actually, no, I do know what it is. I know this is exactly what it is, Stacey. Is my driving force in my life. My driving force in my life is clarity. I absolutely cannot handle things that are not clear. And so if it is not clear to me, I can't live with it. It bugs me. It is a driving force in my life. And so I was never afraid to ask a teacher to get clarification, because that just drives me so much to understand. That's how I got to be so good at QBO, is QuickBooks Online, because I can't stand to not know. I have to have that clarity. And I think it's because I have that driving force in me that maybe not everybody else, it's as strong with them. And so because I have figured it out for myself to understand it, now I can share it with somebody else. So I think that's really what it is.
Yeah, you're just making me think too. So I've interviewed someone who had a stuttering thing, and then he worked through that. And then when he was able to work through that, then he now is helping a ton of people overcome that. Now he's helping them with other stuff too. And then there's other people I've interviewed that had dyslexia, and they learned in a different way than other people. And so they're able to then interpret things differently. And I don't know if you're comfortable talking about the thing we talked about that we both have, where I don't even know the name for it, but where we can't see images. Yeah, like we can't see images. And I'm just wondering if that might be also something to, and this just came up, I was just thinking of it as you were saying, that need for clarity, because I think if something comes naturally to someone, they might not have that same ability to question. And is it because maybe you're seeing things differently, then it almost is this driving thing of wanting to understand it?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I love talking about aphantasia.
Oh yeah, for the listeners, let's share what that is, because I just sort of slid by it. Because you're the one, I've always had it. You're the one that was like, oh, that's what that is.
Yeah. I think only recently have people come to realize that it's a thing, and that then there's a word for it. And that is that I do not have the ability to picture things in my mind. And so my husband and my daughter, both of them are just amazing at this. If you pick up an object, or they look at an object, and they just look at it once, and then the picture of that object is it in their mind, and they can manipulate it. They can turn it around and see other sides of it. They can tell you what it looks like and what color it is, and all of that. And I have a very limited ability to do that. It's very, very, So I can't picture things in my mind. And it makes it really hard we just did a big remodeling project, and you have to make all these decisions about what things are going to look like. I can't imagine what it's going to look like. I don't know what it's going to look like until it actually exists. So yeah, that has a huge impact in a lot of areas in my life. So
yeah, I think there's something really interesting about that, of it being harder to see things. So then that helps you almost question to break it down so you understand it even better. Yeah. And then being able to then reinterpret it is also kind of a thing.
Yeah, that could be. There's a woman who her business is as an animator. And she discovered that she had aphantasia, and there's a YouTube video that she put up that has her animations, and she kind of talks about it. And that's how I got a name for it. My son actually sent it to me and said, "Hey, does this sound familiar?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that is me." And I think that happened to a lot of people who saw her YouTube video. But she is an artist, and she makes a living creating art and being an animator. And she says, a lot of people would think that that would make it hard. How could I be an artist and have this? And she said, but I think that it's actually made me a better artist because I've had to really study and understand and figure out pictures because it doesn't come naturally to me. So yeah, so that could be the same way with me, that's why I just have to have clarity all the time because fuzzy things just don't fly with me. This is a good trainer. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is important for the listeners to understand. Whatever you feel sometimes might be something going against you could actually be going for you, and tapping into that power of why it's good for you, which is kind of where that introspection comes in and why it's good to get to know yourself.
Yep, absolutely.
So, okay. So now I'd love to go back to, okay, so here's Margie, right? You just published your first training and you know how to do that. So you're feeling comfortable. You reached out to your network and there it goes. Now you're getting interest and then things are moving, momentum. Now you're starting to hire employees. You've never been a business owner before, right?
Awful. I don't know what I'm doing. What?
So let's go there. I'd love to hear how that process has been because that's scary and crazy and overwhelming. And the response you've gotten to this has been insane. So you're building it. And that's something I say when I had my company, everything grew so quickly. You don't have time to catch up. So you're constantly running, but people don't realize that you don't know what you're doing. So they're following you. And this is honestly, I didn't know this until I exited that business. And it's almost like most people have that thing. And that's the thing that I didn't realize. I wish I would have known. I wish I could tell my old version myself that because I always felt like I wasn't doing good enough, but I realized everyone kind of has that thing. So I was just curious what that was like for you.
Well, I have a very good friend who she and her husband built this amazing business from nothing. I mean, they had 3 part-time. When they bought this business, they had 3 part-time employees and they built it up to, I don't know, I think when they exited, they had 80 employees or something like that. And so they ended up selling that business. And so I went to lunch with her and I was like, I am so lost. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I had 8 contractors that were doing various things for me. And I was like, when did they become employees and how do I handle that? And she just said, you just have to figure it out. I mean, here I thought I was going to get all this sage advice. And she's like, you just got to figure it out. Look at the numbers and one piece at a time, because she didn't know either. Her husband bought this business and she just started doing the thing.
Everyone thinks that everyone's got it all figured out. And that's why they're so scared to start. But they don't realize that half the people have no idea what they're doing. And they're just sort of moving through it what you said, one piece at a time. And then they're kind of moving through action by doing it.
Yeah.
And it's the people that try to make everything perfect before it even starts. They're the ones that struggle.
Yep. And that's really true. And I will share a piece of my story is that through the 20 years that I was a stay-at-home mom, I'd always had some kind of side hustle going. I'd always tried to do various things and I was never, ever successful. And what is the story about burning the boats? And I wish I could recall it for your listeners, the exact story about some guy who wanted to conquer this land. And they had sent company after company with boats trying to conquer these people. And the people were so savage or whatever that the men would always turn around and go back home until this one guy went and he finally conquered this people. And the reason was because he burned the boats so that the guys didn't have a way to go back. And I am confident that the reason that I was never successful is because I always had my husband's income to rely on, because it didn't matter that much if I was successful. Whereas now I had that safety net completely taken away from me. And now suddenly I have a tiger nipping at my heels, like, holy crap, I've got to do this. I've got to figure this out. I've got to make it work. And that has made all the difference. I don't encourage anybody to get divorced or lose their safety net or whatever, but I certainly can say that was a huge push. adversity does amazing things to you. It really, none of us want adversity, but actually adversity is the best thing for us. So
yeah, I'm so glad you shared that, because when you're going through something hard, you can almost find the good in it and realize, what is this happening? Why is this happening? What can I do with it? Type thing.
Yeah. It's so hard when you're in the middle of it, though. When you're in the middle of it. People would, when I was going through the divorce, people would say that all the time, you'll be happier when it's over. On the other side, life is going to be great on the other side. And I just could never wrap my head around that, because I was like, but what if it's not? It could. There is a potential. There is a path in which my life is not better, in which my life still really sucks, in which that I am in the poorhouse, that I am. There is that path. So it's so hard when you're in the middle of it to see that. But it's always true. The best things in my life have come from adversity. And I'll share a business related story, is that last spring, so it was about almost a year ago, Intuit changed their testing policy, and it completely threw my business in a loop. And it was so far, I'm sure there will be harder things in the future, so I don't want to jinx myself, but so far that completely had changed the way that we deliver our training. And for months, it was painful. It was so hard. And it was getting through that and making our adjustments so that we could pivot and match the new policy and the new way that they were doing things. And I remember at the time saying to myself that this was going to make us better. And that was the first time I can recall in my life going through something hard and knowing during it that I was going to be better because of it.
It's got to be because you had been through so much already. And so you kind of flexed that muscle of going through something hard. Do you think that's the thing that helped?
I think that was part of it. And it was having that self-confidence in myself, that I knew what I was doing. I knew what I was capable of. I knew what my gift to the world was. And I had already had a couple of years of success and validation to help build that confidence in myself. If it had happened right when I started, I don't know that I would have gotten through it as easily, because I hadn't built up that confidence. Because here's the thing, is that for 20 years, I was out of the workforce and I tried to go back into the workforce, just on my own self-confidence, but I didn't have any validation to back it up. Now, this time, I had my self-confidence, but I also had some validation, so that when this thing fell apart and I had to pivot and redo everything, I knew that I could do it. And I knew that we as a company would be better because of it. And we are so much better. Now I look back and I think, oh my gosh, I am so grateful that that happened, because we never would have been able to scale the way we were doing things before.
I have to hear too, by you tapping into your confidence and by you recognizing your superpower strength with being able to turn complex things into simplistic ones, what has that done for the people that have been in your program? Because I feel like that's got to have shifted a lot in their careers.
Oh yeah, well, that's what gets me up in the morning. It's so exciting. In fact, just yesterday or the day before, we had somebody, so we're running a Facebook ad now, and somebody had commented on the Facebook ad that said, LOL, you can get the training for free from Intuit. And I had responded, well, yes, you can, and I went through why our training is better. It's the difference between getting training from a textbook versus getting training from a teacher, right? Just night and day difference. Plus, we have non-native English speakers, plus people get lost in the training. Just all these reasons why somebody might want to pay for us when they can get something for free. By the way, you can also learn how to fix your car for free on the internet. Right. Exactly. But most people don't want to do that. Most people just want to go to
It's a really good analogy. Yeah.
So anyway, so this was like a month ago, this guy had made this comment on my ad and I had responded, then nothing came of it. And then just yesterday or the day before, one of my former students also responded to that guy and said, there is no comparison between Intuit's training and Margie's training. You will learn 10 times more from Margie. He actually said that. You will learn 10 times more from Margie. This course is so worth the money. So, and then the original poster responded and said, wow, that's a ringing endorsement. I think I'm going to buy her program for my whole staff. So, yeah, I get testimonials all the time that just brings me to tears of the people who struggled so much, were in so much pain, and that I've been able to get them over just this little hump so that they can go on and be successful in their own careers. I attended a conference. It was actually just the week before you and I met at the conference we met at, but I was at a conference just that week before. And the first thing that they did at this conference was we all took a test before we went to determine what they called it, I think, motivational maps. And so we all took this test beforehand. And then while we were at the conference, we opened up an envelope that said what our personal motivation, what our driving force was. And my number one was impact. And I was like, oh my gosh, that hit my soul, because I was like, yes, that is why I'm so motivated by the impact that I have on now thousands and thousands of students who were struggling, I have a special place in my heart for immigrants. So they come to this country, they have to learn a whole new language, they have to learn a whole new culture, they can't get a job. So the best thing for them to do is start a business. And in order to start a business, they have to be able to manage the money. Every single business needs money management. So they have to learn how to do this money. And I help the people who are in this situation, can help other immigrants. And then all of those people, those businesses are helping other people. And it brings me to tears. I'm so excited. I just love having an impact like that. It just gives me chills, brings me to tears. I love it.
Yeah. And I can see it. Everything's all lit up for anyone listening. Yeah. It's really cool to see someone that's overcome the stuff and now it's making this impact in so many people. Well, I would love for you to share with the listeners what your number one piece of advice for doing the thing is.
My number one piece of advice is take action. I mean, I know that sounds like it's just do the thing, right? But here's what I have observed in so many people that have come into my life recently, is that there are so many people who have these big dreams for their lives. They want to make changes. They want to do stuff. And there is a disconnect between the things that they do every day in their lives and what they imagine their lives to be. And so you have to bring those two things together. You have to not only have the vision, but you actually have to take the action toward it. You have to actually do the thing. So that has been a real kind of eye-opener to me lately. Just some people that have come into my life that I've noticed talk a lot, but don't actually walk it. So do it. Do the thing, and your life will change in ways that are unimaginable for you.
I'd love you to share for everyone where they can learn more about you, and if they're interested in also signing up for your program, that would be cool for them to hear that too.
Yeah, well, I imagine that a very tiny percent of your audience is actually bookkeepers and accountants. That is one of the things about being very niche down, is it's actually kind of freeing, because I don't feel like when I was in network marketing, for example, they would say to turn around and talk to somebody that's in line at the grocery store, right? To try and get leads. And so it's very freeing to have just such a small niche and like, oh, I only need to talk to you if you meet X, Y, and Z, right? But my programs are available at fastandeasyqbo.com. I think my sign is partially obscured. Oh, this is a podcast anyway. You can't see it.
It might go on
Anyway.
YouTube at some point.
Okay. So it is fastandeasyqbo.com is where you'll find all of my courses, and you can reach out to me directly. You can just send an email to support at fastandeasyqbo.com, and that'll get to me. So I love to connect with people on LinkedIn. And I am the only Margie Remmers-Davis on LinkedIn. I'm the only one in the world. So.
Well, I thank you so much for coming on. I'm so glad we got to do this.
Yeah, it's so fun to reconnect.